So by now, you all know the news. Vertigo Entertainment, Games Workshop, Amazon, Henry Cavill, they're all linking up together, and we're about to get the Warhammer 40,000 cinematic universe. Yes, that still gives me a little bit of a buzz in my belly. Now, in today's video, I want to talk about two important things. I want to talk about the first project that they're going to be making, because I personally feel the first project is going to be the most important project that they put out there. And secondly, I want to talk about Henry's role. What role is he actually going to play? We know he's going to star in something, he's going to produce it, but what is that star role? Because again, that is very, very important for the future of this cinematic universe, in my opinion. So let's jump in and let's get talking. Now, if you read the article that they put out there, which I'm sure most of you have, one of the things that stood out to me is that they want to bring this to the small screen and the big screen. Now, the big screen is the cinema. You know, it's going out watching Avatar 2, whatever's out at the moment, Matilda, as I went and watched with my daughter the other day. You know, it's the big movies, right? It's the big cheese. That is where you kind of make all your money from. Small screen for me hints at, you know, Amazon Prime, you know, TV series, TV shows and stuff like that. So I'm thinking now, are they going to either go with the big screen first or the small screen first? I potentially think they may go with the big screen, and they go with a big project. Now, the debate, the talk about this is, what is that big project going to be? Because me and you, we are already hooked into Warhammer 40,000. We know the stories, we know the IP, we know everything about it. But for other people, this is where they want to try and get their claws into. They need to bring that other audience in, and not to confuse that audience as well. Because we know that Warhammer 40,000 can be a very, very confusing story. So the first story they tell, I personally think, has to be the right story. It has to have the balance in there so it doesn't overly confuse people, but it still gives off that grim darkness. It still shows what this IP is all about. Now, a few of the suggestions have said maybe we should go with one of the biggest stories out there, which is the Horus Heresy. Now, I just want to talk about the Horus Heresy for a second. For me, as a Space Marine fan, to see the Horus Heresy brought to life, I think would be one of the greatest things I would want to witness. But I think at this point in the cinematic IP, I don't think it's the right direction to go in. And one of the reasons why is that when you tell the story about Primarchs and Space Marines, it's kind of bland, right? I know we love it as Space Marine plays and stuff like that, but a Space Marine as a whole is a very, very bland character. You know, they kind of have no emotion, even though the Horus Heresy is filled of, you know, emotional decisions, brother betraying brother, cousin fighting cousin, father losing his sons, that type of stuff, you know, worlds burning, families being ripped apart. It's mainly told from this, like, the Space Marine perspective, and I think having a story told from the Space Marine perspective would lose a lot of interest with a lot of the wider audience for the first project. Anyway, again, you can definitely do the Horus Heresy, maybe do it as another film, or maybe, you know, another TV show at some point, you know, on Amazon Prime and stuff like that. Get the real big budget for it. You know, if they can give billions of dollars to Rings of Power and stuff, then why not can they give it to, you know, Games Workshop and the Horus Heresy and all that IP that, you know, all the story that we actually have in there. But for me, as a starter project, I think it's a no-go. I've said this from the start, and I've always said this actually about projects and getting people into 40k. Always start with the human stories, because with the human stories, you connect then on that emotional level, because the humans are like me and you. Space Marines are gene-enhanced super beings, which, like I said, are very, very bland. But when you have that human there who is going through the same fear, the same emotions as you, you can connect with that then, because, you know, when something monstrous appears, you're like, oh my god, that is so scary. A Space Marine's like, cowabunga it is, and he just runs it in, stuff like that. It's like completely different. So having that human story, I think, is going to be one of the biggest factors that is going to draw a lot of people in. And I think some of the greatest stories of the human connection have already been told. Now, I know a lot of people have spoke about this already, but Eisenhorn is probably one of the best stories you can tell in the Warhammer IP, because it has that emotional connection, it has that understanding to the broader 40k IP. It actually, like, if you've read the books, which I'm sure most of you have, you understand that it slowly envelops you in to the Warhammer IP. It doesn't rush you too much. Dan Abnett does a great job of introducing you to the certain elements in 40k, the certain characters, the certain authorities, everything like that. So I think if they can go that direction, I think it'd be pretty cool. Another direction they could go to, but I think this would be great for a TV series, is Gaunt's Ghosts, because Gaunt's Ghost would work fantastically, I think, like a kind of Band of Brothers Pacific kind of TV show that shows like the brotherhood of this band being put together, losing their world, and then fighting into the distant stars, hoping to, remake a new world, led by Colonel Commissar Ibram Gaunt, who they hate and then, become to love at the end and stuff like that. I think, again, that is another fantastic tale because it shows the human side of it. It also shows a broader aspect of 40k while not engulfing you in like mass bits of lore. It shows like martyrdom, sainthood, chaos, blood pact, all that kind of stuff. There's some Xeno stuff in there as well, and there's Space Marine stuff in there. There's all that stuff in there. So I think those type of human stories are probably the picks that I would go for. But there's also another option as well. I think that what if they just if they don't do Eisenhorn, they don't do Gaunt's Ghost or something, what if they actually choose to do their own story? So the story set in 40k, it's still part of the lore and stuff like that, but it has no attachments to the books or anything. Of course, you need to get the right, or like the perfect writers for it. I'm calling you Dan Abnett because you've wrote screenplays before and stuff like that, apparently, according to your CV and stuff. I think you've wrote for like Doctor Who and everything like that. So if they can get that like correct writer to it, and they can make their own IP, I say their own IP, their own story, that could have its advantages, because then we as the audience, me and you as 40k fans as well, we actually don't know where the story goes. We don't know who dies, who lives, who turns traitor, who's the hero, everything like that. There's a lot of twisting turns in there for us as well. So, maybe that could be on the cards for them to do. There's so many stories in 40k. I say from 30k to 40k, there's so many events that happen in between, the Beast and stuff like that. I'm just picking the Space Marine ones. But yeah, they can literally go with anything, and they can make it a fantastic show, film, anything like that, if they have the right people attached to it who understand the IP, who understand what it is to be in Warhammer 40,000. I think that's one of the main things that they really need to get across to the people who are stepping in and experience it for the first time. This is not Star Wars, right? Everyone dies. Everyone is kind of the bad guy in Warhammer 40k, right? There is no good guys. There is. I know I banter about it and then say Space Marines and the Imperium are the good guys, but really deep down, everyone is just as awful as each other. You could probably argue that the Orcs are the good guys because all they want to do is fight, and that's it. The argument is there that the Orcs are the good guys. But yeah, there's so many stories, there's so much stuff there. They just have to show what it is in the Warhammer IP, and to get that attachment, to bring people in like, oh my God, this is so grim dark, this is so violent, this is amazing. And trust me, you will get a bunch of new fans. There's a lot of videos I've been watching from other content creators who are mentioning this news, and they have no idea what 40k is. And they've been trying to research it. They've been watching lore channels and stuff. Shout out to Bouldermore and Luton if you want to check out some lore channels. And they're slowly creeping into it with this news. And to see a new person like that step into it and slowly start learning, I think it's a great thing for us all. I think it's a great thing for the hobby, the community, to get these new people in, to start buying armies, more people to throw dice with, have a laugh with, everything like that. So hopefully Games Workshop can achieve this. They can show off what it really is into 40k and actually produce the big thing that will have that big attachment right at the start. Now, moving on to the next section, which I'm extremely excited about, that is talking Henry's involvement into this. Henry is a producer, and he's also going to star in this series as well. Now, the producer part for me is a big, win, because Henry loves the lore of 40k. He respects the lore of 40k. So I personally think the stories that are going to be told, or potentially will be told, depending if their book and they're a new story, as we just mentioned, will be told right. It will respect the IP. It will be that grim darkness of 40k. They're not going to Star Trek it or anything like that, where everything everyone gets on with each other. For this, it's going to be that kind of grim, dark feeling, which I want. I'm not sure about you, but that's what I want. I want blood, guts, demons being birthed out of anyone's anus and stuff like that. That is the kind of story I want to see on my TV and go to the cinema to see. Now, with Henry's involvement in the actual screen itself, TV show or cinema, this is one of the biggest debates. What does Henry star in? What does Henry do? Because Henry is the main actor at this point. He is, as I like to say, an A-list actor. Some people don't agree with that. The guy's Superman at the end of the day, or he was Superman. So for me, he is an A-list actor. He's been in some big projects before. So yeah, I really put him up there as, a main attraction to getting people into the cinema. And I think that if they did do something with Henry's involvement, it would be the cinema. It would be the big flick. And the debate really, again, goes back to the point we were talking before, is what kind of project will that be? Now, we all know Henry's done interviews in the past. People have mentioned Eisenhorn, and he's actually said, if I go into that role of Eisenhorn or a certain role, it has to be that perfect role, because once you are that role, that is whatever you'll be known as then. It's as simple as that. If Henry picks, let's say, Eisenhorn, for example, then he will always be known as Eisenhorn. He can't jump then and be Space Marine, because people, well, he could do that, but a lot of people will be like, oh my god, I thought he was an Inquisitor. This makes no sense. Why is he a Space Marine now? It's that kind of thing out there, which, a lot of people get confused of. Me and you won't get confused because, of course, we're used to it. But, the average person coming to the cinema will get confused about that. Now, for me, you have to have a role that has the longevity and has the ability to expand over a lot of years in Warhammer 40,000. Also a lot of films as well, sequels, potential TV spin-offs, all that type of stuff, to get Henry involved as much as possible. Now, there's only a few roles that really have that. Yes, as I mentioned, you can have Eisenhorn. Eisenhorn lives for a very long time. Technically, we don't know when Eisenhorn dies. He could be frozen right now in status, ready to be let loose with Gilliman and everything like that's going on with the Indomitus Crusade. Another big role, of course, which a lot of people are theorizing, is that he will be a custodian. Because he loves Custodes, he collects Custodes, he paints Custodes. It's all over, his Instagram, his social media stuff. This is the stuff he actually posts about. Now, if he was to be a Custoda, I think the only big Custode out there really for him to play is Constantin Valdor, because Valdor is a very mysterious figure in 30k and let's say 40k at this point as well. I don't really want to go into spoiler territory in this video, but potentially you can have Valdor in 40k. It's theorized that he will return in 40k at some point with a certain storyline. Again, I'm not getting involved in that at this moment in time. Now, if that was to happen, then that could be the perfect role for Henry, because then Henry could basically be around before the Imperium. He could, be there at the foundation of the Imperium. He could be there through the Great Crusade, the Horus Heresy, the things that happened after the Horus Heresy, certain events, leading up to Warhammer 40,000, and then potentially returning with Gilliman's return, the Lion's return, and stuff like that, happening with the big lore events right now. That could really be the big role, because Custodes are basically immortal. They don't age. They get a little bit slower, like 0.1% slower, and they don I think it's a hood, and they become like spies for the Imperium and stuff, for the Custodes, and send information back. But yeah, they're basically immortal, so they can only die when they're actually killed unless they're put into a dreadnought and stuff, and then they'll probably never die. But yeah, that is one of the big options for Henry to play. Now, my own personal theory on this, and the role that I would actually love Henry to play, and again, this is just my headcanon, this is just my theory now, I would love Henry Cavill to play Dante. I think if Henry Cavill stepped into those golden boots, it would be one of the greatest roles ever in his career. Because Dante is the oldest Space Marine. And again, it's all about age and, the story over time. So you can have that arc of like a young Dante, then, growing into the role of him eventually becoming the chapter master. You can then get involved with some of the big stories. Like if you've read the Guy Haley stuff on Dante, please go and read it now. Pick up Dante first, Devastation of Baal, then Darkness in the Blood. It is a fantastic series of books. It's probably one of my favorite series of books out there. And it's such it really is an emotional tale. And as I said before, like Space Marines are kind of bland. That story is not, because Dante really does have this emotional connection to the Blood Angels, his beginnings as a Blood Angel, his story fighting all the way along to eventually becoming the Chapter Master. And even when he's the Chapter Master, the sacrifices that he has to make, the battles that he fights in, the Devastation of Baal is one of the most badass events since the Horus Heresy. I'm not going to spoil it, but trust me, you need to read that book. Listen to it, audiobook it, whatever you want to do. It is amazing. The amount of just violence and just death and destruction and just pure anarchy in that book is just next level. And it really, really goes. Again, there's an emotional story to it as well. I'm not going to spoil it. But yeah, I would love him personally to play Dante. I think, it has a longevity of the character then. It intertwines with some of the main events. Gilliman coming back, the Primaris Marines, everything that's going forward now in the future. It connects everything that's going forward on that story level. But again, you go back to that same old debate. Space Marines, are Space Marines good for showing off the 40k IP to new people? Really, if you look at it, Astartes did a pretty good job, and there's actually no dialect in there, and a lot of people were sold on that. So, if it's done right, if it's done correct, then yeah, this could actually happen. Right, I think I've wasted enough of your time. I have no idea how long this video has been. I need to cut it down. Hopefully it's not like 20 minutes long. If it is, I'm so sorry I bored you for 20 minutes. Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. If you've got any thoughts, feedback, anything that I've discussed on here today, please post it down below and we can have a nice little talk as we always do. See ya, have a great day, and bye-bye.